The curious thing is that our welfare fund is probably the most substantive of the topics we're going to be bringing up today, because there at least we kind of like know what we're doing on the first of the subjects to be brought up. As I think a great many of you were aware, dental treatment pretty much ended by the middle of March. Except for emergencies, people were wisely avoiding going back to finish whatever work they had started in terms of dental work, because it was simply too dangerous in those months. People did begin to go back to the dentist starting in mostly in July and August, but for more than almost a third of the year, people were not going to see their dentist. Now, we knew that would have an impact about how much money we're laying out from the dental benefit, because that's a long period with no dentistry going on. So we asked the self-insured dental service of Valley Stream, Long Island, they've been our vendor actually since we first started the welfare fund, and the reason why we started with them many years ago was that Dr. Eli Sachs, who ran that operation, was the one who was being used by Jim Hall, the head of the Management Benefits Fund, and since we were trying to follow the lead of Management Benefits Fund, we went and used their vendor. We've been very satisfied with their work over the years. They kind of know their stuff better than we do by a lot, and we called them up to them and asked them, let us know if we are saving money on this to the extent that we think we would be. They did. They called us back and told us, yep, the number of claims is dropping off precipitously, sharply. Okay, so sometime around the beginning of the new year, I called them up again and said, I'm going to at some point be asking you for further information about how much did we save? And when you have that information, then the next question will be, and how can we let people who didn't get a chance to use it this past year use it next year? Let me clarify for a second. Our dental year is a fiscal year. It starts on July 1st and goes straight through to June 30th. So the dental year, if you have a right to use up to $4,000 worth of reimbursement per person and dependent each, is a fiscal year. And thus, it was the end of the fiscal year when the COVID hit, and thus we now have the numbers for that period very clearly. So I spoke to the other trustees, and they were very much inclined towards doing something to remedy what had hurt the members during that period. We were receiving the normal appeals to the dental fund from members, because everybody has a right to appeal to the trustees if they think that something has gone wrong and should be corrected or done differently. Well, all the appeals we got for a period of really half a year had to do with the fact that they had not been able to. I'll take an example. A person has a participating dentist in New York City, but the person has now moved to Florida. You couldn't fly back from Florida at that point in time, so you couldn't see your dentist. But what happens to a person in that situation? They only get $4,000 maximum worth of treatment in any 1 year, and if they can't use it up in the year before and they need to, does it spill over into the next year, or how can they handle that? There were many such stories. Anyway, the trustees met last week, and after many consultations over the period of time with the self-insured dental service, we came up with what we think is a pretty fair and prudent response. In other words, not only is it fair, but we can afford it. We won't be doing anything that would be foolish. I'm going to now stop trying to look into the camera and kind of read this, because it's important I get the words right so that you understand the motion that we have approved. Okay, here it comes. Whereas large numbers of members were unable to access dental care from April 16th, 2020 through June 30th, 2020 due to the pandemic, and since the self-insured dental service verified after the fact a sharp drop-off of usage and claims for that period, and since subsequent consultations with the self-insured dental service enabled the OSA Welfare Fund trustees to form a fiscally prudent plan to help those who lost the opportunity for needed dental treatment, therefore, be it moved that members and their dependents can be reimbursed up to $2,000 extra this fiscal year if they did not spend their full $4,000 last year. If a member was reimbursed the full $4,000 during the prior dental/fiscal year 7/1/19 through 6/30/20, no added reimbursement will be issued for this fiscal year, only the normal $4,000 maximum per member or dependent. If a member was reimbursed less than the full $4,000 during the prior fiscal year 7/1/19 through 6/30/20, any amount not claimed up to $2,000 will be allowed to be claimed during the current dental fiscal year. Thus, a member who received $3,000 in reimbursement last year can claim up to $5,000 this year to make up for the lost months of opportunity for dental treatment. The maximum amount for a person, for those who qualify, will be $6,000 for this fiscal dental year only. In effect, of course, this is passing the change after the fact because our year started again in July, and as I mentioned, we had a sharp uptick in July and August and September as people, with the pandemic having receded primarily in New York City, we had people going back to get their dental work done. And some people have already exceeded the $4,000 cap, and since the self-insured dental service would stop giving them any money at that point, some of them actually are owed a check now under this new rule. I was very pleased to discover that SIDS is prepared to go look back, as it were, and to send extra checks out right away to cover the fact that in some cases people were due $4,000, $5,000, even up to $6,000 worth of reimbursement, and they only got up to $4,000. So that's being corrected now. And that at least is a good way of trying to catch up for something that went wrong.